been sick for 12 years, and she saw Jesus was passing through, and she reached out through the crowd, and she just touched him. But she had a faith that when she touched him, she'd be well. And you know what, Ed, there were hundreds of people around Jesus that day. I'm sure people were bumping into him. It was crowded. Yet he stopped and said, who touched me? I don't know that everybody else got healed or they all got their miracle, but when you release your faith, when she had an expectancy that, hey, if I can just get to him, I know something's going to happen. I know I'm going to get well. Well, I think if we live with that expectancy of, Lord, thank you, it's another great day that you're opening doors that I can't open. You're taking me where I can't go on my own, giving me wisdom, helping me to be a blessing, just an expectancy to, like you're saying, to be a force for good and to see dreams come to pass.
I love that. I'm so grateful we're doing this, by the way. Thank you for this. For me personally, but also I just know millions of people are being affected by it. It just warms my heart to know it. But you're also a dude. And so I love this story in the book because almost identical thing happened to me. And I love this because it's about the enemy underestimating us. So you're about 10 years old.
Yeah.
You're playing in a little league game. And I was a little dude too. I know you love baseball. I played college baseball. We both share that in common. Bill's telling me about how when you gave your big talk, I think it was at Yankee Stadium, you set the podium up over second base. So I do know you love baseball.
Yeah.
But I think it was one of those stadiums anyway. But so anyway, I want you to tell them this story because I think it's so powerful. In the book, you talk about how you come up to bat and what do the coaches do? But I love your response because you're still a dude, right? And this is important.
That's it. Yeah, it's funny, Ed, because we're not 6'5".
Right,
we're both good sizes, but
yeah.
I was always very, very small growing up, height-wise, and so I'm in little league, 10 or 11 years old, and I come up to bat, and I was a good player. I played second base, but I was just so small. So I come up to bat in a little league game. You got all the parents on both sides, and as a kid, you're still trying to figure out who you are to begin with. So the coach from the other team comes out of the dugout when I come up to bat, and he starts waving and hollering to his outfield, saying, "Come in, come in, come in," and he's just way too dramatic. He could have done it a lot more subtly, and he's basically saying, "Come in, this loser's up to bat." I mean, you know what? I just thought, this guy does not know what's in me. He does not know what I can do. He didn't breathe life into me. He didn't equip me, and there's something rose up at 10 years old, and that guy, the pitcher, threw the pitch, and I swung as hard as I could, and it went over everybody's head. One bounce hit the fence. I had an inside the park home run. I was always very fast. But the funny thing, the point of the story, not just to brag on that, but the point of the story is the next time I came up to bat, I promise you that coach came up with the same enthusiasm and started shouting, "Back up, back up, back up." And I believe that's what happens to us many times in life, that, hey, listen, don't let somebody else label you or tell you what you can't do, or, make you feel like you're at a disadvantage, or you didn't get it, you're not strong enough, big enough, talented enough, good looking enough, you don't have a great personality. Listen, they're underestimating you. You got to go out and, hit the ball out. You got to go out and use your gifts, and you let that boldness, that confidence rise up in you, because people don't determine your destiny. God does. And so I believe that you step up with courage and with confidence, and you'll see those same people that put you down. They'll be the ones saying, well, look out, look what they're going to do. I
love it. I hope those of you that are listening to this that may not even be people of faith are just starting to feel something stir within you, that you're capable of more. And that, maybe you'll begin to consider what Joel and I are speaking about today, but at a minimum that you begin to feel something stirring in you. And for all of you that listen to this, there's a reason why you've always had that question on your heart. It's a reason why your soul's always tugged at you, is, what's the truth about this? Why is that the main question you've always had all your life? You ought to consider why you keep asking yourself that question. And I hope maybe today's given you some of those answers. I have to ask you a question. I wonder where your confidence comes from, and if you've struggled with it. Because you have this very beautiful combination of people that I love, which is they're confident, yet it's combined with a tremendous amount of humility.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you struggle with your confidence in the past or currently, even do you have it now?
Yeah.
And what are some of the things you do to help yourself, or what could other people do to help themselves with it?
Yeah, exactly. Ed, I struggled with my confidence early when I was younger in life, and especially when I stepped up to pastor.
Sure.
Because there are thoughts telling me, I don't want to speak for you, but I think they come to us all saying just what I said a while ago. I'm not as talented as Ed, or I'm not as strong as Phil, or there's always something trying to push us down, to keep us from our potential. And what helped me to build my confidence, a couple things. Let me get this one first. I started playing a different recording in my mind. When those thoughts told me, Joel, nobody's going to listen to you. You're going to get up in front of people and not know what to say. You're going to look like a fool. I quit playing those. They kept coming, but I quit playing them, and I would just replace it with what the scripture says, what God says. Just, I'm strong, I'm confident, I'm well able, this is my time. I just stayed positive toward myself. And you make a good point, Ed, because I don't mean this in arrogance or like, we're better than somebody, but we're not worse than anybody. And I think you have to have a right. I don't think you'll rise any higher than the way you see yourself.
100%.
And I think so many people see themselves limited, and hey, the way I saw myself is I can't do what my dad did. I don't have that authority to get up in front of people, and I'm too quiet, I'm too shy, I'm like the coach, I'm too small. But you know what? You got to tune all that out. So I think a big part for me was letting the right recording play in my mind, just changing those thoughts. And I would talk to myself, Ed. Maybe not always out loud, but there were times, especially early on a Saturday night, when I didn't want to get up on Sunday morning and speak in front of people because those thoughts fear was trying to hold me back. I would look in the mirror and just say, Joel, you are strong. You are well able. You've been raised up for such a time as this. I would talk myself into it.
You did. That's interesting because I do the exact same thing. And I think some people, this is why it's so powerful the way you said it, Joel. I don't know that some people are even aware that recording's going on.
I know.
And I think if you just get quiet and ask yourself, what are you saying to yourself? What are you thinking about yourself? Second thing is, you don't have to believe everything you think. Not everything you think is true. In fact, a lot of the things you think aren't true. And you can actually take control of that recording, as Joel said. And you can actually begin to believe those things. Philippians 4:13 tells us that we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. Well, listen to me. He didn't say some things or just things. He said all things. That's an important word, all. Too many people, I think, God's in their life on Sunday at church. Bible study's great, but when they walk into a board meeting or a speech or an interview like this, all of a sudden they're alone.
Yeah.
And that's when that conversation starts to happen. My recommendation to everybody is, don't leave him at the door then. He said all things, right? I
know. It's so good. Absolutely. That's very powerful. And I like that point too, that, some people leave God out. Well, no, the point I really wanted to make is that what you said, that people don't know the recording's going on. And I think some people don't realize it's not supposed to be negative. I think that's just life has pushed us down, or what somebody said has got into that recording, and they don't even realize it's just kind of a subconscious of, you're not that talented, or you can't get that position, or you can't make that speech. But I think it's a subtlety there, and it's very powerful to say, if you get quiet and listen and think, are there things that are limiting me? Am I defeating myself with my own thoughts? Am I defeating myself thinking that, maybe that I've made too many mistakes in life? Am I defeating myself because this last thing didn't work out, that it's never going to work out again? You got to get those thoughts changed, and know that I believe our brightest days are still out in front of us. I believe that God, He's using everything. Like I said with Joseph a while ago, you've had some disappointments maybe, or a setback, or something didn't work out, but I believe that's still leading you to where God wants you to go, to bigger and greater things. So if we can get our recording going right, then I believe we can get there.
So do I. And as you were talking, I was just thinking about, so often I think people think their current mess disqualifies them. The mistake, Joe, you don't know the mistakes I've made. You don't know the sins I've committed. You don't know how broke I am. You don't know the things I'm ashamed of. The truth is, God does know those things, and it does not disqualify you from a bright future. In fact, He loves you just as much as He did before you did those things. My children screw up all the time, right? Our kids do this. I'm sure yours have too. I've never thought once when my son or daughter's made a mistake that disqualifies them from being happy or successful. And that's, your Father in heaven's not thinking of that of you either, right? But I think we judge ourselves with the mistakes we make, thinking somehow, okay, because I've done that, or I've thought that, or I didn't do this or that disqualifies me from my dreams. That's untrue, correct?
That's so untrue what you're saying, because God gives us another chance, and I think we, like you said, a lot of times we live with that guilt and that condemnation that's pushing us down. But I think of it like this, Ed. We've all made mistakes. You have to receive mercy and move on. But here's the point I want to make. You have enough people in life against you. Don't be against yourself. Don't be defeating yourself. I've made too many mistakes, or even that negative inner dialogue as well. But some of the greatest people in the Bible made big mistakes. I think about Phil, my friend Phil Muncie's over here. We talk about sometimes Abraham, the father of our faith. Well, he had a baby out of wedlock. He lied and said his wife was his sister, and yet he's called the father of our faith. And so God was showing us that, hey, don't try to make mistakes. Don't live sloppy, but we're all going to make mistakes. And so you got to get back up and like you said it earlier, get back in the game. I mean, there's a game going on. There's still a great destiny for you to fulfill. I really believe this. His mercy is bigger than any mistake, and he can still get you to where you're supposed to be, but you have to get back in the game. I don't think God's going to come and force us to do something. You got to stir your faith up, and I like to think of it like this. Somebody needs what you have. Your family needs your love. Somebody needs your gifts. This world won't be as bright as it should be without your smile, without your hug, without your you releasing your talents and your potential. So, don't be selfish and keep it to yourself. Get back in the game and start moving forward. And as you do that, you're going to see God open doors and make things happen that you couldn't make happen. Just signs of his favor as you step into, just new levels of your destiny.
That game, by the way, is important that you play your own game. So I heard you tell this story. I hope you remember. You could tell it. But you're out for like this jog.
Yeah.
And I just think this analogy is so unbelievable because I've done the exact same thing, but I think it's such a great metaphor for life. You only have so much energy.
Yeah.
When you begin to expend it on things that don't serve your dreams, don't serve your family, don't serve you, you're a weaker version of yourself. And you got to play your game. So would you give them that example and the lesson from it too, which is so profound?
Yeah, that's a good point, Ed. Yeah, I was out running a while back, and I run through the neighborhood of, a track that I run on, or through the streets, and I got on this one path, and it's a mile down the boulevard, and I saw a guy about, I don't know, a block or two ahead of me, and I could tell he was running a little bit slower than me, but in my mind, I thought, I want to catch him. I'm racing him. I just, just a competitive spirit.
Joel Osteen's racing him. He doesn't even know it.
I know, that's the thing. The guy didn't even know it. He was way older than me too, so I wasn't really fair. But I just kept running, and I ran faster and faster. I think it's good to have goals, but I'll make a better point with this. But I kept running faster and faster, and man, every block I was gaining a little bit. I kept going faster. I just focused. I got to beat this guy. Didn't even know I was racing him. Well, I finally passed him. And when I passed him, about 30 seconds later, I looked up and I had missed my turn. I was supposed to turn like 4 blocks sooner. So I was so focused on trying to catch somebody else, in a race that I wasn't supposed to be in, that I missed where I was supposed to go. And I think we do the same thing. We think, man, I gotta outperform somebody. I gotta outdress them. I gotta outdo them. But you have to run your race and stay focused on your goals. And I think one thing you're so good at, Ed, is you're very successful, but you're happy for other people that are successful.
Absolutely.
You're so happy for me, and I know you are for others. And I think sometimes instead of being happy for somebody else, we got to compete with them, and we got to try to outperform them. And we got to try to, I don't know if it's competitiveness or jealousy or whatever, but you have to stay in your lane, run your race. I've learned this. If you can't celebrate people that are ahead of you, you'll probably never get there. And I think sometimes we try to pull them down. And, well, they're not that great. I could do that if I had that much money, if I had this. But you got to celebrate people that are maybe seem to be more gifted or more talented or more successful, because pulling them down is just going to, talking about them, finding fault, because we all have faults. Everybody does. But I've just learned to, God gives you different strengths, and one of mine is, hey, there's a lot of people that are, better speakers, more successful, but you know what, more power to them. I celebrate them, but I think it goes back to being comfortable in your lane and not comparing and trying to spend energy on, trying to impress somebody. That takes a lot of energy.
It sure does.
Ed, you need that energy for your dreams and for your goals, so celebrate who's ahead, and then just run your race.
It's interesting. I know we don't have too much time left, but you're just saying, I've always been that way, but my dad passed last year. In fact, it'll be a couple of weeks. It'll be a year. And I was with him. My sister, who's Erica, who's here today, she was with him as well when he passed, which was a beautiful thing to be able to be with him when it happened.
Yeah.
Difficult during COVID because you couldn't go visit him in the hospital. I feel for so many people who lost someone in the hospital. We were able to get my dad home for about a day or two. before he passed away. But while I was sitting there with my father as he was passing, I was just thinking to myself, all the things of the world, of this world that we worry about, that in those moments are no longer going to matter.
Yeah.
When my dad was there taking his last breaths with his family around him, he wasn't thinking about some guy that got a promotion in 1988 in front of him.
Yeah.
He wasn't worried about some other guy who was richer than him or had a plane. And I think sometimes in life, most people think only everybody else is going to die.
Yeah.
I don't think most people, one of the great things about faith is it makes us think about the limited time we have here on earth and the extended time, hopefully for eternity, that we have somewhere else. And in those moments, just the idea of worrying about how much more successful or what other people are doing, in the end, is that going to matter? And your last breaths, is that going to matter? And more as I just get older and have these experiences, that perspective, I wish I could have given my 25-year-old self, that I hope maybe even just sharing it right now gives it to people that are a little bit earlier in the game than I am. Run your race, play your game. It's so profound, brother.
It's so good. That I feel the same way in that the older I get, the more I realize that, man, each day is a gift from God. Mm-hmm. We got to make the most of this day. And some of the things that I would have worried about 20, 30 years ago, man, I don't have time for that now.
Yes.
You got to make the most of each day. And I think that's why Ed and I are probably closer to the same age. We're trying to encourage somebody that's younger than us. There's a lot of things in life that you can't control. You're going to look back. I mean, when we were trying to get our big building, the Compact Center, Ed, that was 15, 20 years ago. You know, a lot of nights, Ed, I would wake up in the middle of the night sweating and think, what if this doesn't work out and all that? But, you know, if I could look back, when you look back and you see the grace of God of guiding your steps and all, I tell my younger self, don't worry so much, Joel. It's going to work out. And if the door closes, it wasn't supposed to open in the first place. But I think so much of this that we're missing the beauty of this day.
I do too, and that's this great skyscraper. I'll let everybody get the book analogy about the Compact Center in the book. I mean, I'm telling you, brother, I loved this book. I can the recall is right there, right? I loved the book because it's true and it's backed with scripture. But you know, the other thing I think everybody should consider, and we're limited on time, so I want to make sure I ask you one or two more things. But you know, oftentimes I think when people come to a decision point, like you with the Compact Center, it ended up being a tremendous blessing. But you know what I think? I think had you not bought it, there'd have just been another blessing.
Yes.
In other words, I think there's this false belief system that every decision that we make is either going to turn out good or bad. Is it possible that if you just call a shot and execute and step in faith, that God will bless either decision? Is that not possible?
I think it is, Ed. You put it very beautifully well. Yeah, that's right. That God opens doors, God closes doors, and I don't really see it as a disappointment if a door closes, rather than, hey, it's just another opportunity is coming. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have to go through the closed doors to get to the open ones. And I think, like you said, sometimes we put too much emphasis on it, but I just believe that God's ordering our steps. And sometimes the steps are not always in the direction that we think they're going to be. God doesn't always take in a straight line. Sometimes you'll be looking the other way and God, what are you doing? But there's a curve coming that you're going to get there. But I think you're right. It's not, you know, if something, I think another way to put it, my thinking is what's supposed to be yours is going to be yours. Wow. And nobody else can get it. And so that's why if the Compact Center didn't open, okay, there's going to be something else. If that last business didn't work out, or the contract, or even a relationship, you know, unfortunately sometimes it doesn't. But you know what? What's supposed to be yours, who's supposed to be in your life is going to come. You keep doing the right thing, and you know you'll see the right thing show up.
I really believe, everybody, if you'd rewind that last minute of what Joel said, I really believe that's true. And I think there's this pressure we put on ourselves as leaders and as parents. I better not make the mistake. I think that all goes back to your earlier point about our earthly father. I think sometimes that a father or parent's role in our life is to rebuke, is to punish. Jesus rebuked in the Bible several times. But I think oftentimes that pressure of making a mistake or getting in trouble, even as an adult, I'm going to get in trouble if the Compact Center doesn't go right. There's this fallacy in our life that you have a God that's blessing you. Call the shot, be decisive, step in faith. maybe both will work out. Just think about that, everybody.
That's good, Ed. That's good. You're very inspirational. I think, Ed, too, we put too much pressure on ourselves. We sometimes we're fighting everything, but I've learned to live from a place of peace, a place of rest. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to study. I'm going to prepare. I'm going to do my best to make good decisions. But you know what? Every one of them may not be great, but God is full of mercy, and I'm not going to beat myself up if it doesn't work out, because he knows how to close doors and open doors. And just, I think, sometimes I think we can get so focused on our dreams that everything's uptight and we're living, I got to get this done, I got to get that done. But you got to enjoy this moment, enjoy today. Still, I think Ed would tell you, let's work hard. Let's use our gifts and talents. Let's stretch and believe. But along the way, we have to enjoy it and know that God's directing our steps.
Bust your tail, but have some fun doing it and have some gratitude when you're doing it. A couple last things, by the way. I'm so grateful for this today. Just a personal thing. I wonder, does it dawn on you the magnitude? And I know that, listen, you're a man and I'm a man, and that's all we both are. But does it dawn on you? It makes me emotional to ask you this, because sometimes it impacts me in my little way too. Does it dawn on you the magnitude of how important you've become? And do you feel a pressure about the weight of the millions of people that you carry and who you are in the world? Do you ever have moments, Joel, honestly, where you sit back and go, my gosh, this is big. This has turned into something pretty big here. Right? There's got to be a flash.
I do, and I do it in a right sense. I think I still am in awe of what God has done and where I am. I don't feel like I've lost that. I feel like just the other day I was back running camera, which is a good thing too. But yeah, I just feel humbled by it. I don't really feel pressured in the right sense of a responsibility. I'm not going to get up there and speak if I'm not prepared, because I feel like people are giving me their time. They're giving you their time, and I think you feel like I do. I don't want to waste their time, so I want to be prepared, and I feel very honored to be able to speak to people. I never dreamed this would happen, and so I think it helps me to stay humble, because I realize that, especially when you come from my type background where I didn't think I could do it, that it's God giving me the strength and the wisdom and somehow the favor and somehow the connection with people. I don't know where it all came from. But I know it came from God, but I didn't know again it was in me. But I think it's important to live, don't lose the wonder of what God has done. I think sometimes, hey, we were on cloud nine when our babies were born, but how about 15 years later? You know what I mean? I think it's just, or when sometimes God gave us that job and we were so thrilled, but sometimes you look up and 10 years later you're complaining about it. I think it's important to remember, stay in awe of the look back over your life, the great things that God has done. When you met somebody and fell in love, and I don't know, I think it's important not to lose the wonder.
Beautiful. I just think of how I feel like you were being prepared. I think oftentimes God is preparing us for this next level in our lives, even though it probably doesn't feel like it at all right now. I'm thinking about this. I'm just picturing you as a young man. You come back from college, you go to work in your dad's church. By the way, your dad's church for like the first decade basically went from like 90 people to a couple hundred. So your dad was planting all these seeds, and then eventually there became this much more abundant harvest. But it was the first decade. It didn't really grow very much. Most people don't know that. But I'm picturing this kid back there, kind of shy guy, and he's cutting tape. And he's cutting these sermons down. Your dad would talk for 40, 45 minutes. You'd have to make it like 25 minutes for the show. But you're watching these over and over again. I just have to think that was God preparing you to even have more of the word in you, to have more of the inspiration in you, to have more of the understanding of how to deliver it on the stage in you. Even though you do it differently, you were being prepared. And many people listening to this, you're being prepared right now.
Yes.
True? The preparation is huge in life, even though it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, Ed, I didn't know that I'd ever get up and speak, but yet those 17 years, I was having to get my dad's train of Keep being good to people. Keep, getting to work on time, being your best, because you don't know where God's going to take you. Because sometimes we think, well, I'm just a business person or just an architect or just a school teacher, but you're not just anything. You're made in the image of God, and He has awesome things in store. And so I believe you are being prepared. It may not be to be on a stage, but you don't know what God's going to do. You may be working at a company, but you're going to own a company one day, or you're teaching at a school, but you're going to run that school. You don't know where God's taking you.
You were born to do something great with your life, period. And some of them are going to seem like very small ways. Phil asked me to ask you this, so I got to ask you, what's the story with you wearing your dad's shoes for a year?
Well, when my dad passed, I'd worked up in the production, so I didn't have any nice suits and shoes. I'd climb ladders on Sunday morning. So we bought my dad some shoes in Italy about 20 years before my father passed, some alligator shoes. My dad would never spend, $600 back then on a pair of shoes because he came out of the Great Depression. So he wore them for all those years. Well, when he passed, I didn't have any dress shoes, so I just borrowed my dad's shoes, and so I wore them for the first year. He passed in January, but I didn't even think about it. I just wore them because they were nice shoes and we were the same size. But in a sense, I guess I was filling my father's shoes.
Oh my gosh, that's true. You really wore your father. You be pastoring in your actual father's shoes
for the first year, for the first 11 months. I was wearing my dad's shoes, and then Ed, that was 1999 when we hit 2000. I went and bought a new pair of shoes, and as 2001, I wore my own shoes. But Victoria, my wife, says, "Joy, you weren't just filling your dad's shoes, you were drawing strength from his shoes." And it's something. I didn't even realize it was symbolic until somebody started writing about it, but I still have them in my office, though.
It's an incredible story. I just picture your dad listening to you on the phone that day before he passes away, and just how proud he must be of you, brother, and what you've become and what you've done in the world. It's just unbelievable. Last question.